Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Podcast. Check out this record. My name is Frank, and with me is my good buddy, Mark.
Hey, that's my name.
That is your name. We're syndicated via Redline Radio LLC, so you can find us on. Also, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts every Friday. Of course, on Redline Radio, we're on from 11 to 12.
Yeah, and of course, you can see our ruggedly handsome faces on the YouTube.
So again, welcome. This is the podcast where Mark and I recommend albums to each other and review. Plus, we have a wide variety of musical discussions, our Spotlight series where we dig into a band or a subgenre and we see what comes out on the other side.
Yeah, and in our Verse series, we'll pit two bands or albums or whatever it is we feel like pitting against each other. And Frank and I will duke it out over which one's better. Plus, our 100% top 10 lists, which will have you yelling at your phone about how we forgot your favorite band. But you know what? It's our podcast, and we're going to do what we want.
You got that right. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. And we actually, Mark, we have a new Facebook group.
Hey-o, Facebook.
That's right. We like to drop additional content there that will hopefully leave you wanting more of our musical goodness and random nonsense. If you got a record and you want us to check it out, just drop us a comment wherever you find us. While you're at it, subscribe, give us a review, and let us know what you think of everything. So I say this, Mark, how are you, my man?
Frankie, there is a hot, stanky air about, and we're going to need to clear that air. But first... And we'll keep this short. With this being the long-awaited Dylan album, let's talk about songwriters real quick.
Yeah.
And see if we can build a Mount Rushmore of songwriters. I'm sure we'll piss off all kinds of folks, but I'll start. And I'll say Bob Dylan's the first head on the Mount Rushmore of songwriters. What says you?
Well, I think for those who have listened, and Mark, you know me for a long time, you know I'm going to go Tom Waits, number 2 there.
Ooh, excellent choice. I think for me, and maybe the curveball of this group is going to be Elvis Costello.
Oh, I mean, he's a mutual favorite of ours.
Mutual favorite, but the diversity in the songwriting, the complexity, the longevity, I mean, just absolutely famous. So, Frank, that leaves the fourth and I don't want to say least important, but but the fourth head on our Mount Rushmore. Who are you putting up there for songwriters?
Well, I'm going to say Leonard Cohen, being number 4. I think all of those that we just mentioned, and we could be wrong, but hey, this is our opinion, that they have a similar mindset when it comes to songwriting, and you're not going to get many people like that. And the more you dig into their catalogs, the more you find these hidden gems. And I'm comfortable with putting them up there for a Mount Rushmore of songwriters. What about you?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think someone's bound to bitch that we didn't say Woody Guthrie.
True. Could be.
Absolutely. But at the same time, didn't he steal a bunch of songs from the Carter family? So, hey, look, it's the nature of the beast. Woody was awesome. That machine does, in fact, kill fascists, and it's a beautiful thing. So,
right. I'm comfortable with those 4, though.
Yeah.
So there is a matter we need to talk about, Mark, and that is Gray Sports. I don't know. That wrong script. I'm sorry, man. I meant to say one Robert Allen Zimmerman. That's right, folks. The Nobel Peace Prize winning Bob Dylan. And I know this was an intimidating task, right? And I think you were with me on that, right, Mark?
Yeah, this was a bigger task than really I expected. And to be honest, I don't know what I was getting myself into. I thought it would just be like, look, I'm going to make a bunch of fun of Bob Dylan because fuck him, he takes himself too seriously. But, the fact of the matter is the legend of the man is almost bigger than the man himself. So it's just really daunting, insane task. I think last week I described him as looming over rock and roll. As this figurehead. It's interesting. This album really took me by surprise. And I just think it's a shame he doesn't go by Roberto.
It is a shame, actually. Where do you even begin with Dylan, right? That's the question. I mean, his whole career in life, it would take us 20 plus episodes, and each album needs its own episode, really. At 79, this is his 39th studio album.
My God.
I know, absolutely insane. What I love about him is that he just keeps going. He doesn't care about anything other than just being a consistent creator of music. With each album comes really an unraveling of his signature lyrics that could take months to figure out, and he
Yeah.
goes into terrain that's always uncharted, and I personally admire that, my man.
Frank, did you know
Hmm.
that conspiracy theorists believe Roberto Dillon sold his soul to the devil?
Wow.
So in an
Tell me
interview,
more. Hmm.
he was asked why he was still touring and playing so many shows despite his massive fortune and fame, right? And Roberto just looks at him and he goes, it all goes back to the destiny thing. I made a bargain. Excuse me. I'm trying to do Roberto in my head, and I'm like, I don't even know what Bob Dylan Roberto sounds like.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
made a bargain. So I'm quoting him here. I made
Yeah.
a bargain with it a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end, end quote. So the interviewer asked him who he made this bargain with, and he said, quote, with the chief commander of the earth and the one we can't see, end quote. So for those religious folks who believe in, the God and the devil, felt that because of the quote, made a deal, he's referring to getting his talents from the devil and not the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Wow, and interesting too, because there's the whole legend of Robert Johnson too, right? Who the same scenario occurred
Down to the crossroads.
down at the crossroads, right? Very very interesting, and you know. I mean, what can I say? What can I say, right? As far as something like that goes, it wouldn't surprise me though.
It's so mysterious, though. Like, it's what a Dylan thing to say. Like, yeah, I'm keeping up my end of the bargain.
Yeah,
Well, what bargain? The bargain I made with the man you can't. Like, what crazy like, I would love to know how much cocaine happened before that interview.
I wonder if that. Do you know the date of that? Is that before he went electric?
No, that was definitely after he went
Okay,
electric.
all right, all right.
Pretty
Because I
sure.
was like, maybe it's
Yeah.
just so funny. So it's like before you get into a new album like this too, I was thinking, how can we incorporate our top lists into this episode? And
Right.
I think if you pick just the top 10 Dylan songs or top 10 Dylan albums, it doesn't represent us just because there's too many. I think songs, albums, there's bootlegs out there, and I'm sure many deep tracks that if me and you were to dig into them, we would probably like them. And
Right.
even though I probably listen to more Dylan than you, I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface a lot of times. So let's cast a wider net and
Yeah.
let's do a top 10 list of all things Dylan. Now, this could be songs, song titles, a lyric, an overall album, a moment, anything. Mark, I'm down with that. If you want to alternate, let's do it as well. And you could start.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was kind of crazy just to think of, like, to try to get my head around. And Frank's right. I do not know Dylan's catalog as well as honestly as I should, or as well as Frank does. But for me, number 10 is an album called Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. It's actually a soundtrack and his 12th studio album, and it features a really cool. It's actually kind of short, especially for Dylan. Knocking on Heaven's Door. Plus, he's got a cameo in the movie as a character named Alias, so that's really cool.
Yeah, that was a great album too. By the
Yeah,
way,
so it's a really cool, and it's interesting to see him take on a soundtrack, and it's beautiful because you get to hear all of the scores that were in the movie played out through the soundtrack. It's really cool.
yeah, no doubt about it. That's pretty awesome. My first in the top 10 things, all things Dylan, no particular order, of course, is the song from the Blonde on Blonde album. Most likely, you go your way and I'll go mine. But it's the Before the Flood version. This was the live version recorded with the band in 1974. Just what I love about this particular track is that he's like so angry and he's singing it so you could just tell there's bitterness in there, and he's
Yeah.
basically yelling it the whole entire time. It's such a cool track. The album track is great, but this one's awesome just because he's like yelling it the whole time. So that to me is a really cool Dylan moment in my top 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to check that performance out.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
So for me, number 9, I got Highway 61 Revisited.
Oh,
Just as I was looking at things and ranking things,
so
the
good.
album is so classic. It's got so many accomplishments. It's just a classic, and it lands here on the list for me because it's such a strong record.
It is. It is. I mean, it marks really that second. I mean, he's had many phases, right? But it marks that second phase where he just goes into such amazing, amazing tunes. I love it. I agree with you. My next one is that second Scorsese doc on him, the Rolling Thunder review. I
Mhm.
just love the ridiculousness of it, and I love how Dylan admitted that it was that ridiculous, and he had no idea, and they had no idea what they were doing the whole time. It's like they just put this together and just threw it on the wall to see if it stuck, and just that whole ridiculous nature of it. I love it. So that's mine, the Rolling Thunder review.
I'm convinced all that white makeup just came from him smearing cocaine on his face. And they were like, "You look like a clown." And he was like, "Oh, you think I look like a clown now?" And he just did his whole face like that. If you haven't seen that, just watch it for him wearing that makeup. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think he's
Um,
playing them the whole time. That's my.
I agree too, because he is all about character.
Yeah.
I will say I'm going to make a lot of fun of him for doing cocaine and drugs. He has been sober since 1994, and he should be applauded for that. Anyways, number 8 for me, Frank's going to know exactly where I'm coming from this. Blonde on Blonde.
Ooh.
You know,
Which I have right here, by the way.
Look at that. Look at that. On the compact disc.
On the compact disc.
On the compact disc.
Great album. Great album.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it justice, but it's just such a great record. It just pulls you in, you know, especially we started with this record. I went back and, you know, that's why we had to postpone last week. I was so busy going, wait a minute, I need to go back and listen to other albums. I need to go back and do this.
Yeah.
And Blonde on Blonde just kept sticking to me.
It's so good.
It's a great record. What do you got?
So good, so good. My next is an album too. It's Nashville Skyline. Just because he, not only did you have the song with Johnny Cash, "Girl from the North Country," which he recorded albums before, but this one had Cash on it too. But he quit smoking, and then like just his voice changed. Like to me, I just laugh at that. You hear "Lay Lady Lay," and you're like, what? You're like, this is Dylan? He quit smoking and his voice changed. So every time, you know, songs from that album come on, I just associate it with him quitting smoking. But it's a fine album too. So that's my next one.
Yeah. So for me, my next one, number 6, I really wanted to just do "Tangled Up in Blue." I absolutely love that song. But then I remembered, you know, "Blood on the Tracks" also has "Shelter from the Storm" on it.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, they kind of bookend that album, and it's such a beautiful record. And those 2 songs in particular are phenomenal, but the whole record is just gorgeous. So I'm going to go with the album up for that. "Blood on the Tracks," "Tangled Up in Blue," "Shelter from the Storm." It's just a classic. It's just, it's such a beautiful record.
Yeah, that's my wife's favorite Dylan song too, is "Tangled Up in Blue." So it's fantastic. And
Jen's got pretty good taste.
She does. Thank you, my man. Thank you. And on the Costello record, "King of America," the first song, "Brilliant Mistake," he had the inspiration for that from listening to "Tangled Up in Blue." So it works. There you go. Mm-hmm. My next is just an overall thing of getting in touch with Dylan and the stuff that went down for the Nobel Prize. George Harrison was in the Traveling Wilburys with him and stated in an interview, you could call Dylan for years and you can never get in touch with him. I just think that's just so funny. It's like they have just a hard time getting in touch with him. And in correlation to that, like the Nobel Peace Prize, it took him 2 weeks to acknowledge that he won it. It's just the little shenanigans that make it funny to me. So that's
and this is him sober.
This is him sober. Yeah. This is him sober, completely sober. So if you ever need to get in touch with Bob Dylan, you might be waiting a while. So,
yeah. So number 5 for me.
Yeah.
Halfway through here, 1975's album, "The Basement Tapes."
Oh, yeah.
With the band as the backing band, recorded in the basement of the band that they were sharing in Woodstock, New York. Robbie Robertson said he remembers Bob Dylan's face lighting up when he realized they had a small recording studio in the basement, and he ran home to grab his typewriter so he could work on lyrics as the band recorded.
Nice.
You really feel that energy in this record. You get that that youthful energy out of Dylan in this. You know, and it's really quite amazing. He was so inspired. The band, you know, before they were even the band, it's just such a talented group of musicians that you could tell his want to grow and to develop himself is so clear and so beautiful on this record.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it made me think of too, mentioned Costello again twice now, but now it's going to be a third time because there's actually a supergroup called the New Basement Tapes, with Costello, with Marcus Mumford, Rhiannon Gibbons from the Carolina Chocolate Drops, the guy from My Morning Jacket, and obviously everything is related around the the Basement Tapes name, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I agree with you. That one's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
My next one is, I spoke of the Traveling Wilburys. I'm mentioning a song now. It's Tweeter and the Monkey Man from that album.
Mm-hmm.
He penned this awesome tune, and what I love about it, not only the song overall, but the fact is with Springsteen references from the beginning to the end. He took all these Springsteen songs and references. It's set in Jersey, the whole story, and he piled them all into that, and that's pretty cool. So that's his little tip of the cap to the boss there. So Tweeter and the Monkey Man, that's mine.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. So number 4 for me is probably one of my earliest memories of Dylan. It's his Unplugged set.
Oh yeah.
I just love how kind of raucous the album feels. You really feel like he was there to put on a show and to get people just riled up and singing and expressing themselves. I don't know that I'll probably ever have the pleasure of seeing him live, just realistically. And I feel like this, of the recorded live performances, it's so consistent, so well done. And the nice thing is that it's all one session, and it's all one, recording session, as opposed to, a couple songs from Wembley and a couple of songs from the LA Sportatorium and a couple of songs. You really get what that show felt like. So I just really love that Unplugged record. It was one that kind of blew me away. One of my first memories of Dylan, really.
Yeah, what's cool about that too, as is much of Dylan's live performances, is the song he plays on there. He just never plays the same version of it twice. It's just, hey, this is how it's going to roll tonight, and it's going to probably end up being different each time, and hey, that's okay. And case in point, in the Unplugged records, that's a good one. My next one, I'm stealing it from you because you mentioned Blow on Tracks. Blow on Tracks is one of my favorite records. It's classic, just so many beautifully written songs. I don't need to say anything more than what Mark already said about it, but such a fantastic record from 1975. So Blow on the Tracks for me.
Very nice, very nice. So we're at number 2 on my counting. Mine's going to be Freewheelin'.
Bob Dylan.
Freewheelin'. It's just such a classic Dylan album.
Yeah.
You get
great cover.
Blown in the Wind. You get Girl from the North Country. A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. Don't Think Twice. It's All Right. It's just a classic from top to bottom. It's so. It just makes you like it. It makes you want to start a band. It makes you want to get into playing music and being, but at the same time, it's fucking brilliant. You'll never write anything as good as any of these songs, but it makes you feel like you can, and it's so inspiring. It's just such a great record.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh wait, we were on 3, weren't we?
Yeah, I have 4 left.
All right.
But I think you got a bonus.
Go ahead.
Bonus one there. My next one is this, and there's some controversy to this, but it's "Gotta Serve Someone," which is and I say that because that's the song from the first record of the Born Again Dylan phrase. It's just controversial. That's really what it is, and it encompasses him. It could have been any faith, any following, any doctrine. It's just fascinating because it's him, and that's all it is. And it's these left turns that he likes to take. Now, that album, The Slow Train Coming, is actually a very good album. The other 2 Born Again ones are hit or miss. Now I personally have to go back and listen to those, but again, it's just the sudden left turn he decides to take, and he does it quietly, and he's just like, oh well. So it's that whole bit. So that's mine.
Yeah, he's got a great way of turning into something really hard, but leaving the listener completely unaware until they hit the wall as they're going through the turn.
That's the best way to do it.
I mean, it's so subtle and so smooth that, he's just brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got Bob Dylan. I'm going to say something new about goddamn Bob Dylan.
I know. What's yours? I think you have one that you also got there.
Yeah, so my number 3 pick, which I skipped, is actually, spoiler alert, it's this record that we're doing tonight. It's Rough and Rowdy Ways. This thing took me so off guard.
It really did, I know.
Really reignited my love for Bob Dylan and his work. I just, and it touched me. Like, we'll get into it. Right? That's the whole point of the show. That's what you're listening for. We're gonna get into it because this record's fucking crazy. I love it.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk about the tracks. My next is just a bootleg series overall. I mean, he's got 15 of them. I have another little thing here. This is number 8, back in the old compact disc days. Listen, it's just all filled with unreleased tracks, different versions of songs, that he even does them differently live. It's just incredible, the output and the prolific nature of these things. I mean, there's so many, 15 of these. There'll probably be more. The bootleg series, pretty cool. So
yeah. All right, so my last one is a little known fact about Roberto, which is that he actually snubbed the Ed Sullivan Show when they asked him not to sing John Birch Paranoid Blues in lieu of something more friendly. Look, they had agreed on it, and then the day of the shoot, they told him to change it, and he walked. This caused a huge frenzy at CBS, but added to his legacy, added to his moral standing, and just made it so that the American people knew Bob Dylan does what Bob Dylan says he's going to do. And it's just such a cool thing. Like, you know what, dude? Ed Sullivan made people, and Bob Dylan gave Ed Sullivan the finger. That's fucking awesome.
I mean, again, those kind of left turns he takes, and it's just like, sorry, man, it's just the way it is. That's what he's all about, and that's what I love. I must have miscounted because I actually have 2 more in here, but
get it. That's all right. I got excited, man. I had a good time.
All right, so here we go. I'll just give 2 more real quick. He came out with a Christmas album a few years ago, and he does this cover of "Must Be Santa." It's a big German style drinking song. It's hilarious. The girls love it when I play it during Christmas time. Thinking of Dylan just singing that is pretty badass. And number 1, you're talking about all these things where he's like, I'm going to do what I want to do. Well, going electric. That's it. Against the grain. Why not? Forget these folk purists. He wanted to get away from the political folk stuff and really found his groove with this American blues rock sound. And I actually, we put something up here on Facebook today, and I knew what the answer was going to primarily be, but I like later Dylan more than early Dylan. And Mark, I'm a huge fan of folk music, but man, I don't know, that later kind of bluesy, gritty style Dylan really hits me. And and on a side note too, he left that guitar behind, the legendary Strat that made him go electric. He left it behind, and they couldn't even deliver it back to them, and he didn't even care. So there you go. Oh man. So I don't know. I'm ready for this album, Mark. I know you are, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot building up. He gave an interview.
Yeah.
Before this, but like folks listening at home or wherever you are, on the train, on a bus, in your backyard, in the pool, in the tub, some candles.
Ooh.
Right.
Hey now.
What I mean when I say he gave an interview before this album, I mean one. There was one interview for this record. He talked about it one time.
And that's the last you'll hear from him. There you go.
And that's all we're going to get out of him. And like, there's something cool about the mysteriousness of it, right? That he's not just like, let me fucking lay it out for you. He's leaving so much of this up to you and me to tell people what it's like. So if you don't agree with what Frank or I say about this, Bob Dylan has, I was just going to call him Bob Dole. Bob Dylan has said, I'm not saying anything else, so Marc and Frank are right. So
there you go. That's right. And there is an interview Mark was referring to. This was by the New York Times right before the release of this album. And as always, it's alluring and captivating. And with the recent deaths, one little excerpt I'll read before we get into the album here. With the recent deaths of Little Richard and John Prine, it gave me a much deeper appreciation for Dylan. And speaking of Little Richard, when asked why didn't people pay attention to Little Richard's gossip work, this is just how Dylan is, and his typical wit and his comment was probably because gospel music is the good news, and in these days there just isn't any good news. In today's world is like a fugitive, treated like a hoodlum and put on the run, cascaded. All we see is good for nothing news, and we have to thank the media industry for that. It stirs up people, gossip, and dirty laundry. On the other hand, gospel music or gospel news is exemplary. It can give you courage. You can pace your life accordingly, or try to anyway, and you can do it with honor and principle principles. There are theories and truth in gospel, but to most people, it's unimportant. Their lives are lived out too fast, too many bad influences. Sex, politics, and murder is the way to go if you want to get people's attention. It excites us. That's our problem. And that's a segue, I think, into this album. And I say that just because it's typical Dylan. It's typical Dylan.
Yeah.
He's going to say what he wants to say. It's this intellectual stream of consciousness. And I think that's what his record and this one in particular is all about, right, man?
Yeah, that last sex and politics and murder is the way to go if you want to get people's attention. This album has my full attention.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. You ready to do it, my man?
I am very ready to do this. I think I'm kicking it off, right? With
you are, man. Kick it off.
I contain multitudes.
Yeah.
What an amazing way to open a record. The track feels like a smoke screen poured out in front of a stage, hiding the album behind it. And what this album has in store, while drawing the listener in, every lyric so well chosen, every note, every chord just swirling behind him. Just as that kind of smoke fades, you get these beautiful lyrics. I'm a man of contradiction. I'm a man of many moods. I contain multitudes. I mean, just like,
love it.
How fucking cool are you with these lyrics right now? The album is really beautifully previewed in this track. He lays a lot of foundation of what's going on here. Like we just said, life, death, love, hate, violence. Just an absolute stunning opening. I did love this line too, and I'll throw it over to you, Frank. What can I tell you? I sleep with life and death in the same bed. I'd give my left nut to write something like that.
I know. That's what this album leaves you feeling. You're like, man, if I could even put like a line of this together, I'd be in good shape.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great opening track, right? The song is taken from Walt Whitman poem song For Myself. It's a prime example of the poetry here, right? Yeah, there's music, but this is a work of superior lyrical writing ability. He mentions Edgar Allan Poe, Anne Frank, Indiana Jones, and the Rolling Stones. They're all mentioned in this one track. The music's like an old jazzy kind of ragtime guitar number chords in the back, especially in the bridge, which is interesting because most Dylan songs don't have this, as they're typically just heavy lyrical verses, and there's many of them after that. I really like at the end when you get this build up and he ends it on the title of the song, I Contain Multitudes. Song ends. I mean, what can I say? Beautiful song, Mark. False Prophet. I thought this sounded familiar, and that's because the music is based on Billy the Kid Emerson's If Loving is Believing. And Dylan takes something classic, bluesy, and awesome, and he adds his little touch to it. I mean, I love the bluesy and slightly distorted guitars. It goes for 6 minutes here, which is like a typical Dylan song. I love the lyrics. Well, I'm the enemy of treason, and enemy of strife. I'm the enemy of this unlived, meaningless life. I ain't no false prophet. I just know what I know. I go where only the lonely can go. I really dig this too. Mark?
Yeah, the smoke has settled off to the side of the stage, right? The curtain comes back, and this really soft and delicate blues number just struts right out to you.
So good.
It has this, just gorgeous, familiar blues structure. And for me, it was hard to put my finger on it. I'm really happy you were able to pin it down. And then Dylan just sucks you in lyrically. Frank pointed out some of my favorite lines. I love how he's able to take a shot at himself here and tell people, I'm not a false prophet, all while not saying that he is a prophet.
Right.
Like I really like that he didn't go and say, well, fuck you, I am. Like he just said, like, I'm not what they're telling you. How very Dylan, right?
Love it.
I also love this line. Like this whole review is going to be like, dude, listen to this fucking lyric. All right. You don't know me, darling. You would guess I'm nothing like my ghostly appearance would suggest.
Again.
Yep.
Again. And this is just one of many examples,
Yep.
So good. Well, track 3, we get my own version of you. We get on the guitar, we get the capo on the second fret, and starting with one of my favorite chords, the B minor. And you already have me hooked a lot of times if you're doing that. So many great, impactful lyrics here. Where to begin? All through the summers into January, I've been visiting morgues and monasteries, looking for the necessary body parts, limbs and livers, brains and hearts. I'll bring someone to life if that's what I want to do. I want to create my own version of you. I mean, again, we get appearances from Scarface, Pacino, Godfather, Brando, Julius Caesar, Leon Russell, Liberace, St. John the Apostle, Frood, and Marx. I mean, it's creepy and jazzy to me all at the same time. I could see Tom Waits singing this, but chalk it up. Another one I like.
Yeah. Uh, it feels like a song you could definitely hear Tom Waits singing for sure. I was a little thrown off at first by how many pop culture references he was using.
There's a lot, yeah.
But as I got back into it and I'm really putting the song together, what is he doing with these references? What is he building here? What is it he's trying to put together? And you realize it's kind of this, almost poetic nod to Mary Shelley and her Frankenstein, in the way that he's really trying to create this better version of himself, even though he knows how badly it's going to end. And it's just this beautifully haunting number. It's absolutely gorgeous. And a great lead into the fourth track. I've made up my mind to give myself to you.
Oh.
This song makes me think about what he said about gospel music, with its kind of humming background and the light guitar. It's so soft and uplifting. Its simplicity is really powerful. I love how it builds with the addition of some light drums as he works through the weight of his decision of giving himself to somebody. It feels like he's working up the courage in the song. With lines like, I hope the gods go easy on me.
Oh, love it. I mean, I love it.
It's just beautiful. And it's such an interesting way to phrase a song, right? We're not saying to the girl, oh, I'm giving myself to you. It's about so much more than that. I've made up my mind that I'm going to do this. Like, we're working ourselves up to build to that moment. And that's what the song is about. Like, it's so, fuck me if this is actually what the song's about, because God knows I'm wrong. But like that moment of building to this, right? Like this anticipation, it speaks so much to love and how narcissistic love is. And like, it's just such a gorgeous presentation of a feeling that's almost impossible to verbalize.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop yammering.
It's so good. It's so good. Parts of it, for some reason, I had like Sinatra's "My Way" in my head during like one piece of it, and I think it's because it's that build up, and this is another where the music is secondary because it's this really powerful lyrical intellectual poem at the end of the day, and it's the title is a simple concept, but it's profound, and obviously the song is anything but simple. But if you think about the line, I've made up my mind to give myself to you, right? So then he takes that simple phrase, then completely guts it out and puts in his his stream of consciousness, basically. And that's so hard to do. We get another bridge here in the song, musically, which is really uncharacteristic for a lot of Dylan songs. I like the solo, and again we get this slight change in tempo where we build up to the end, and yeah, I like it. What can I say? I like it.
Yeah. So next we get Black Rider. Unsurprisingly, the shortest track is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Unrelated to Dylan, it just happened to work out that way. But don't let the length of this track suggest that he hasn't lined it with lyrical insanity of just the highest order. A conversation with the only speaking member of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse is the premise of this song. Even threatening the writer. He just threatened one of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, motherfucker. It's goddamn Bob Dylan. I'm not going to do the meaning of this song any justice. I'm still working it out, if I'm being completely honest. The Black Rider could be doing his wife, for all that. I don't know. I do love where he says, sorry, I'm just reading it and it made me giggle.
It's okay. Go ahead.
The size of your cockle won't get you anywhere.
I know. That's a great line.
To one of the members of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love this track so much, man. It's dark, it's potentially catastrophic, and it's intense. I mean, listen, the path you're walking to, narrow to walk, every step of the way is another stumbling block. The road that you're on, same as the road that you know, just not as the same as a moment ago. I mean, the Black Rider, as you said, represents, it's one of the four horsemen, apocalypse, death, represents famine too. I just love how it's this unspoken exchange between the main character, Dylan in this case, and the Black Rider. It's a dark soul who constantly cheats death. Maybe that's what it could be about. Perhaps is it one who's aware of the wrongdoing and they're just waiting for that time to come? Perhaps, and as Al Pacino said in Glengarry Glen Ross, does hell exist on Earth? You bet. Now, I just watched it the other night, so I had to throw
okay. I'm like,
sorry,
what?
Sorry, I watched the movie the other
Sweet
night.
Glengarry Glen Ross reference.
Not sure if that doesn't have anything to do with this, but I just watched the movie again last night. So, listen, I love the song. It has all the qualities that makes me feel good inside because I love those dark and troubling tunes. To me, it's therapy. I absolutely love that track. And
the track's so cool, man. Black Rider.
So cool.
So cool.
I know. Next track is Goodbye, Jimmy Reed. Now, not being a fanboy here, but I love really every song thus far, and this is no exception. Classic blues song here, and I swear these types of tunes are I like the way he does them again almost as much as his folk tunes. I really do. Jimmy Reed, obviously a famous blues musician who influenced so many. To me, this is his blues rock meets gospel. You know, I can almost see Dylan up at some sort of altar preaching this tune. It's amazing to me how this style of song has endured the test of time and it still sounds so good. Something that really could be said for this form of music. It's not overly long here, clocking in at a little over 4 minutes, but I mean, Goodbye, Jimmy Reed, to me is another strong track. Mark?
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I haven't had a bad thing to say yet. Good luck finding one. He was a cokehead. I don't know. But for me in particular, this song and the two before it, just this little block of the record is so amazing. So you know, another one of my absolute favorites off the album. Give me that old time religion. It's just what I need. Just a great blues rock number. An awesome tribute to Jimmy Reed. I just want to stop my foot and drink whiskey to this song. Honestly, I just want give me just a glass of whiskey and let me stomp this. And you know what? We get a little taste of harmonica. We haven't seen any harmonica. I've been kind of like, how the fuck's he putting out a record without a harmonica? Boom. I get some harmonica.
Boom. And here's a harmonica for you, my man.
There we go. You know what? Is that a Bob Dylan harmonica?
No, it's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So for our Cleveland listeners out there, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I went there. Hey,
God, I'm tired of sucking Cleveland sticks.
Next.
at track 7, and that's when the show got canceled. The song is called Mother of Muses.
Yes.
I just love this admission that he is just a vessel for whatever his muse wants. This poetic adoration to the muses that keep him alive all these years, and all the things that he wants from them. But it doesn't matter what he wants. It's about them, and he can't do it without them. And it's just so amazing. I love the simple guitar and the cello combination. It's just stunning. There is some percussion. I believe that there's some timpanis in the back, which are really cool. And it just builds and builds, and then you get this just bellowing cello at the end, which is just such a cool, ominous, but beautifully poetic number.
So good. Yeah. So it's another somber tune dealing with, mortality. You get the light guitars, superb poetry. It's almost like a companion piece to Black Rider, but it's antithesis of it, really, as far as the musical aspect goes. We get Presley and Martin Luther King Jr. referenced here, perhaps, is his muses. I'm sure they are. It's almost like he's saying I'm at peace with myself, whereas in Black Rider is more of a resistance. I could be wrong on that. It's just kind of how I perceived it. Again, a touching tune here. That's great to listen to in the early morning, where Black Rider is awesome to listen to at night. It's like the sun is just poking its head out and letting the light come in, and you could turn this track on. So this is a great one. crossing the Rubicon. Hey man, this is blues meets the journey on the big bad river, right? Lyrics again are tight. I mean, they're tight. I can feel the bones beneath my skin and they're trembling with rage. And I'll make your wife a widow. You'll never see old age. Show me one good man in sight that the sun shines down upon. Pawned my watch, I paid my debts, and I crossed the Rubicon. I mean, this is awesome. It reminds me of like life's journey to the whole belly of the beast thing for self-discovery. Again, the cool thing about Dylan tunes is you could interpret them how you like. I like how nice and clean the guitars are, nice little blues riffs in here. I mean, again, another strong tune, Mark. Take it away.
Yeah, listen to this, dude.
I feel like I'm saying the same thing over, but
yeah, I mean, sorry guys, we're sucking Dylan's dick here. I got up early so I could greet the goddess of the dawn. I painted my wagon, abandoned all hope, and crossed the Rubicon. It's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I'll cut you up with a crooked knife, Lord, and I miss you when you're gone. I stood between heaven and earth, and I crossed the Rubicon. I could just do songs from this, lines from this song. It's a poetic masterpiece. I don't give a shit. You guys can say whatever you want. Just set to a really cool little blues romp. I mean, it's just goddamn.
Yeah, spoiler alert, bonus content will be Mark reading Dylan tunes. Just
I'll do it. Don't act like I won't.
I know you will.
Sign up for that Patreon we don't have yet, and I'll send it to you. So track number 9, we're getting into the second longest track on the album, but the longest up to date. Key West, Philosopher Pirate. So this song reminds me of a movie called The Beach Bum, where Matthew McConaughey plays a poet named Moondog who's living on a boat in Key West. That's how it opens. I won't give away the rest of the movie. But this song really sets up that vibe, that feeling, and it's just really cool. It's almost a pirate's lament. You know, it's got the accordion in the background, and these perfectly staggered lyric delivery. I guess you call that singing, but like it's just so well done. I mean, look, it's Bob Dylan. He's fucking sing talking. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, they nailed the atmosphere of Duval Street late at night, early into the morning, short of having, you know, crowing cocks on the record. It's haunting and beautiful, just like Key West. I mean, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, listen, second to last tune on the album, and thus far it's the longest at 9 minutes 34 seconds. I like how Key West is the backdrop and the subject of the track. I said it like 10 times already, but this is a piece of poetry. I mean, you could take the music away, slap this in a book, classical poetry, make it in the curriculum in high school as opposed to the shit that they're feeding them now, and you'd be better off. You know, this tune, it's a spiritual journey. I really like the theme here, which is the journey of life, or life and its mortality, and that point of intersection where they meet. Maybe that's the sweet spot. Maybe in all of this, maybe that's the sweet spot in this particular song. Again, just an absolute beautiful song, and Mark couldn't have put it better, where it's haunting and it's beautiful, just like Key West. So, I mean, it's great. Now we have what makes this, I guess, a double record. Mark is Murder Most Foul. So you have the 9-minute song that we just talked about, and now you have this song clocking in at over 16 minutes, addressing the JFK assassination. It's really spoken word at this point, and that's super, super cool. You get more references here: Beatles, Charlie Parker, The Who, Carl Wilson, Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Warren Zevon, Stevie Nicks. This song is a time capsule and commentary, but it's not preachy at all. It's observation, and I feel that's the proper way to do it. Some thought this was a response to COVID, but you know Dylan, and he had this completed probably a while ago, so I don't think that this was necessarily a response to Dylan. And it's not much more to say than this is just a really powerful tune. It's lyrically packed. It's a great addition, I guess. Well, it's the second piece of the album, and its own stance just by itself. So, I mean, this is great, man. 16 minutes. Mark, your thoughts here.
Yeah, I'd be really interested if anybody wants to send me why they think that this song is about COVID. I would love to hear that argument, because
yeah,
I mean,
I was thrown off by
really
that.
Explicit with what he's saying. So I'm really impressed. More surprising than people coming up with that stupid idea is for all the shit I've talked tonight, I got the balls to call people stupid. Anyways, is that this 16-minute song held my full attention every time I listened to the record. And I was just able to keep on his train of thoughts as he walked the listener through the impact of JFK's assassination and how people responded to it. The conspiracies, the crying, the visceral response to the most public execution the world has ever known. What an amazing way to close this record too, by the way, right? Where so many themes of death and anguish, suffering, loss. How do you deal with those things? And to wrap it all up, just as the opening of the album really let you peek in to see what this whole thing was about, for this song to encompass so much of it and to close it. And really, you kind of almost feel the song fade to black. Like it really kind of just comes together now. So I just want to close with my favorite line from the song, and maybe one of my favorites from the entire album. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom above me. I hate to tell you, mister, but only dead men are free. Oh. Fuck, dude. Can I get that on my tombstone? That is awesome.
Yeah. And the fact that after all this whole journey he's taken us on the album, this is what he puts in the end here on a 16-minute song, no less.
Yeah. Just going to tuck that little nugget in there.
Yeah. Hey, folks, here you go. Thank you very much. I mean, listen, so good. So good. We haven't had anything bad to say about this record. And what can you say, about this record and at this point in Dylan's career? This is a high quality album for someone who has nothing left to prove. They don't have to do any of this. They can make crap, right? But many are just trying to get into their stride musically and in their musical career. He finds a way just to continue and do the things that no one will ever do. His last few albums were good, and I always enjoyed the bootleg series, but this one, Mark called it, man, it stands out. It's a reason why it stands out. It hits more of a striking chord with me, as I know it does with you, Mark. And like many things, Dylan has a high replay value here. It just adds another solid accomplishment in this peculiar and mystifying person's life, man. And I just love it, Mark. Your final thoughts on the record?
Yeah, so for me, Dylan has simply always been there, and his legacy and his legend is so grand that I don't know that I ever thought I'd sat down to try to break down a Dylan record. It was a daunting task, and this album was a phenomenal place to start. It will move you when it wants to and make you question your ears when you feel like you haven't been paying enough attention. I eagerly await this record showing up at my house because I have ordered it, and I am waiting for this motherfucker to show up. I will be listening to this on the regs. Definitely, if you're like me, take that trip to Colorado. Enjoy this record. It was phenomenal. I was dancing in the living room with my cats by myself. It was a great time. So all that said, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, right? Sure. But it's the nature of me to be Debbie Downer. So fuck it. Here we go. It had me wondering. 79, 39th studio album. Frank and I were chatting. Yeah. If he lasts one more year and puts out one more record, he'll be 80 with 40 records. That's a record every other year for his entire lifetime. That's insane. And this one, arguably is a fucking masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Dewey Cox would have been really proud to write this.
Great movie, by the way, and those who don't think so.
You're wrong. Anyways, wrong. There's a chance we won't get another album from him, right? Now, with his high level of income and advances in modern chemistry, it's not crazy to think he couldn't live to be 150. But if this is his last album, will it change the depth of it? I look at Leonard Cohen and David Bowie with their essentially swan song albums, right? They knew that they were going to go. They prepared something. They had something to be left by, whether they left a big question mark, like David Bowie appeared to do, leaving, that mysteriousness of it. But how Bowie is that? Or you get that really clean and beautiful goodbye from Leonard Cohen. They made those albums for that. Yeah. How does this album compare, not so much to those albums, but I do think there are some similarities. You know, if this is his last album, how does that affect us? Does that change this album in any way? Like, I don't know. I'm the idea of it, and maybe I've been listening to too much Dylan and I'm too far in my own fucking head right now. But what do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, Mark brought this up to me, and he did correlate some things together. Obviously, David Bowie and Leonard Cohen, and those kind of swan song albums at the end. And the Ducks are in a row per se. If something were to God forbid happen, things again, 79 and 39 records. Of course, 80 and 40 would be better. But if you look at the content of this record, one could make the argument for that, just because of what it's all about. Now, knowing Dylan,
the foreshadowing.
The foreshadowing, absolutely. Now, knowing Dylan, he probably did that intentionally, so people like me and you could sit here and talk about that. But man, it's something to think about. And yes, it makes me afraid of losing him, because like you said, you feel like you just got to know him. I feel like I just got to know him again with this other record, and I do hope we get more. I want to get more. Here's a Rolling Stone issue he was on many years ago. I want more of this. I want more bootlegs. I want more stuff. But it makes you think, Mark. So I think Mark brings up really some valid points. And again, just an overall great album.
Maybe we'll get a Hanukkah record next.
Hey, there you go. Bring it on, man.
Have a tequila. Boss does it. I don't know why Dylan can't.
Oh man. Well, speaking of peculiar people, like Dylan, Mark, we have a real humdinger for next week. If we could chat about that real quick. We're gonna talk excited. I know. We could talk about a band that we could both make the argument that's been misunderstood. That band is the B-52s, and their album we'll be looking at is their self-titled debut. I'm intrigued, as always, as we have a running joke for years on the song Rock Lobster. Mark, we just like saying it to each other, Rock Lobster.
Yeah, it's not really a joke. We just find it fucking hilarious.
Yeah, or if it's on the radio, we'll text each other. We'll be like, hey, Rock Lobster's on. And this is their first record. Now, I do like tracks Strobe Light and Private Idaho from their second record, but I am amped to dive more into this debut record. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, this is gonna be a ton of fun. You'll see that energy that Frank and I had back at Sky Week. Plus the B-52s remind me of summer, and we're just about dead on in the dog days of summer. It's been hot and nasty here in Florida. I'm sure wherever you are, it's hot and nasty. Hopefully, you've got a road trip plan to get out for a little bit. So we're gonna put together a top 10 songs for a road trip for you.
Yes.
Have a nice little something to go with you. But of course, if you are going out this summer, and we hope you're doing it safely, both on the road and maintaining some distances, so that you get to be healthy and enjoy yourself.
That's right. That's right, my man. So we're amped for that. The next episode, as always, thank you for listening. You can check us out every Friday on Redline Radio from 11 to 12 p.m. and everywhere you listen to podcasts. There's YouTube, Instagram, and now a Facebook group. So just drop us a suggestion for a record, and we'll be gladly to take that into consideration. So take care, folks.
Yeah, be good to each other. Be safe. Until next time. Bye-bye.